ever thought about how to develop your faith? Hi, my name is Ann McNeil, and I am the Master Wealth Builder, helping to build a stronger and better life and business. And I'm very excited to host with my co-host today this Think and Grow Rich Mastermind Live, discussing the principle of faith with our special guest today, Miss Christy RENEE. But I'd like to start this conversation by encouraging you, but really asking you the question, how do you develop faith? Well, Napoleon Hill shares with us the fact that to develop faith, you can use the principle of autosuggestion. And what is autosuggestion? Very simply, autosuggestion, very simply, is repeating an affirmation, a statement, a prayer, whatever is important to you. This is how you can begin to develop faith. But as you listen to this podcast today, think about what are some ways you yourself can begin to develop your own faith. Yes, we can talk about, what is faith? It's the substance of things hoped for. It is said, what is faith? It is connecting with the infinite and believing. What is faith? It is also the starting point of the accumulation of your desires. What is faith to you? That is what we are discussing today. But of course, I would be remiss if I did not share with you again. We're talking about the book Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, The Principle of Faith, with our co-hosts. And so let me welcome them to the podcast this morning. Good morning, Galen Bingham, and good morning, Dr. Peter James. How are you both this morning?
Fantastic, fantastic. This is always an interesting time for me because it's early in the morning here, Central Time. And I always think, wow, should I just roll over and get another 15 minutes of sleep? And because I don't, we end up having an amazing conversation talking about the principles of Think and Grow Rich. And this chapter in particular, really, really important. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. And today we're going to be talking about this principle that I believe is really kind of the engine behind making this process a reality. And Anna, I'll turn this back over to you, but I love the way Napoleon Hill describes it. He says, faith is a state of mind which you may develop at will after you have mastered the 13 principles, because it is a state of mind which develops voluntarily through the application of those principles. So the more you do this, the more you see success, the more confidence you have, and the more faith that you have that this process works. And right now, I'm all in. So I can't wait for this conversation.
All right. And I got to piggyback on that with Galen. Good morning, folks. Dr. Peter A. James here. Excited to be diving on into the faith chapter of Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill. If you are watching, if you are listening, and you have never picked up a copy of this historical text, today is your day. You can go right to Amazon or whatever. Just type in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and you can get it. But to Galen's credit, the chapter 2, faith, Napoleon Hill says, also, if we go a little bit deeper, faith is a state of mind that is induced by autosuggestion. Ooh, and that's something we're not going to get to for a few months, but it's a great seed to plant there, Anne, because sometimes we talk about faith, we kind of know what it is, but what does the action of it look like? And today, hopefully, we'll be able to dive into what that looks like for Christy RENEE, but also looks like for the audience and those listeners. So excited to dive on in.
All right. Well, let's talk about our special guest today, and let's talk with her. Good morning, good morning, good morning, Christy RENEE. And to introduce to our audience, Christy RENEE is a speaker, author, and grand storyteller, and she has some stories for us today. From overcoming debt and chronic illness to achieving a six-figure salary with no formal experience, Christy is a living testament to the power within, and I would say a living testament to the power of faith and the faith principle. Whether inspiring audiences to achieve the impossible dreams or helping brands grow, scale, and overcome plateaus as owners of multiple businesses. Christy helps you remove stagnation from all aspects of life. Good morning, Christy, and welcome to the podcast today. How are you?
Good morning. Good morning. I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Yes. We were talking prior to the podcast starting about, well, first I want to go back to your first introduction, which I love to ask that question because so many of us have been introduced to the book and then we laid it down. Some have never been introduced to the book and some have it, but have not picked it up yet. So will you share with us a little bit about how did you first come in contact with this book?
Great question. Well, I've been familiar with the book for many years, but it wasn't something that I had really spent a lot of time with. I was familiar with the principles, but being on the board of my local National Speakers Association, Georgia board, I was able to meet you at an event, Anne, and found out about the Think and Grow Rich Mastermind that was held this past fall. And that was a wonderful opportunity to really dive deep into the principles of the book, talk with other community members who were going through the book at the same pace, and really get a lot of different perspective that I may not have gotten on my own.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to start with that before asking you about your journey, and we're going to go to a short video describing these 13 principles. And then when we come back, we're going to talk about your journey and how did you get here? Because I think that perspective and that journey will really, resonate with so many of our listeners because we all come to this point, if you will. And that point, I call it, is the faith walk point. We can talk about faith, we can listen about faith, we can read about faith, but until your faith is tested, do you really have faith? So with that thought in mind, we're going to have Dr. Peter James share with us about the 13 principles. And then we're going to come back and we're going to have you share with us, how did you get here? A little bit about your story.
Yeah, good stuff there, Anne. Excited to roll into this conversation with Christy. But before we do, let's take a look at this video that really synopsizes these 13 steps. If I can go back to faith, Napoleon Hill says in the book, if it be true that one may become a criminal by association with crime, and that is a known fact, it is equally true that one may develop faith by voluntarily suggesting to the subconscious mind that one has faith. And so as you go through all of these 13 principles in Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, it's important to ask ourselves, what is it that we might need to do? What is the action? What are the habits that we might need to do to become the best versions of ourselves, to go to our next level, to accomplish our goals and our objectives overall? These 13 steps this video gives a little bit of a background of the text, but sometimes we think we do such a great job. I think sometimes the video does an even better job. So take a listen.
Number 1 is desire. Napoleon Hill said that everything starts with a burning desire, a compelling reason for doing what it is we do. Step 2 is faith, having belief in our ability to attain that which we desire. Step 3 is what we call autosuggestion. Autosuggestion simply means being very intentional about the things that we are pouring into our thoughts, into our brains, and into our consciousness. Our brains, our minds will receive everything automatically, but we have to work extra hard to make sure that the positive things are what we are feeding ourselves, because those positive thoughts are going to turn into positive actions. Step number 4 is specialized knowledge. No one person knows everything, even about whatever their particular area of expertise might be. And the value of the mastermind principle is using the specialized knowledge of other people. Step number 5 is imagination, the workshop of the mind. Everything starts with our imagination and our thoughts, the burning desire to transform those thoughts into our reality. In order to do that, we have to take a look at step 6, which is organized planning. That is how we crystallize our desire into action, organizing ourselves. Having the thought and not acting on the thought isn't going to get us anywhere. We have the thought, we go through the organized planning to transform that thought into action. Step number 7 is decision. What Napoleon Hill said is the mastery of procrastination. Napoleon Hill said that the antidote to procrastination is simply to make a decision and then move on that decision. Step 8 is persistence. We have to have a sustained effort which is induced by our faith in order to achieve our goals. One of Napoleon Hill's books I love, even the title, 3 Feet from Gold. Those people who became rich during the gold rush in the wild, wild west days didn't do that because they were necessarily smarter or had better information than anyone else. It's because they stayed just a little bit longer. Sometimes people left when they were just literally 3 feet from gold. So hanging in there, being persistent, is step number 8. Step number 9, the power of the mastermind, the driving force. None of us can accomplish anything on our own. Everybody, I don't care who you are, from the most prominent person to the person who might be considered the lowest on the totem pole, everybody has someone who helped them get to where they are. And the power of the mastermind is being able to use those influences around us, use the thoughts, use the knowledge, use the exploration of other people to help us in achieving our goal. Step number 10, the mystery of sex transmutation. This title can be a little confusing, but essentially what the mystery of sex transmutation means is that we oftentimes in our society think of sex as being purely physical. It is absolutely physical, but what Napoleon Hill teaches us is that sex also has an emotional element, and that sex is the strongest of our desires. That if we can take our sexual energy, transform that into positive, creative influences, it can propel us to new heights. And so we spend quite a bit of time talking about the mystery of step 10, which is sex transmutation. Step number 11 is the subconscious mind, which Napoleon Hill tells us is the connecting leap between our human mind and the infinite intelligence, the source of all thought, the source of all creativity. Conscious mind, we spent some time talking about how we use that through the influence of autosuggestion and what we're feeding into our mind. Step number 12, which is the brain, the broadcasting and receiving station of thought. Final step number 13, the sixth sense, the door to the temple of wisdom. This is the final step through which infinite intelligence may and will communicate voluntarily without any effort from or demands by the individual. The principle is the apex of the philosophy. It can be assimilated, understood, and applied only by first mastering the other 12 principles.
Good stuff. Good stuff. So a great opportunity to dive on into those 13 steps, a great review of those 13 steps overall. But now let's go dive in a little bit deeper to faith. Faith. We talk about faith so much. Those of us who are academics or even in science, we second guess faith. But faith is a very important component to outcomes, what we desire to do. So, Ann, I'm going to pass the baton back to you so you can get this conversation going much deeper.
All right. Well, welcome back. I want to just make sure that we get the story straight. And I did see your text. Thank you, Christy, for the message. So just want to go back to the beginning. Christy, if you would take us back to the beginning of your story, your journey at any point you want to start, and bring us up to current and help us understand the beginning and building blocks, if you will, for your faith as relates to this principle.
Absolutely. Thank you. I think my story is a bit unique in that I was raised without religion. So faith wasn't something that I experienced until later in life. However, my story, I guess, in this sense, would begin figuring out the power of the mind for the first time. So it was 2014. I was living in Jacksonville, Florida, and I was just in my mid-20s, had a perfect relationship, 10 years in, 2 cars in the garage, 2 dogs, pretty much everything but the white picket fence. And I wasn't happy. I remember just feeling there's so much more out there for me. If I could just get a mentor, if I could just find the right thing, I just know I'm destined for more. And the book and Netflix special, The Secret, had come into my life, and I was watching it. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with The Secret.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, like many watching it for the first time, perhaps I was skeptical. I remember the story in particular about one gentleman who was getting bills in the mail again and again and again. And he was like, man, I just need to flip this. I'm going to get checks in the mail. I'm like, no way that works. Yeah, okay, guy. Sure, I'm going to get checks in the mail. Well, even through my doubt, I said, okay, I'll do what they say. I'll believe I got checks in the mail. Unsurprisingly to us now, lo and behold, I did begin to get checks in the mail. I was working in the service industry at the time. And, at $2.13 an hour, I think is the hourly wage, or was back then. Of course, I'm not going to have any money owed back to me ever. I began to get checks in the mail from back taxes or server wages that were owed. And I thought, this is kind of incredible. Okay, so what else? And at this time in my life, I was actually going through a good bit of health issues. It seemed that the more I tried to heal, the worse that they got. And now I know that it was because my gut biome was off, and our gut, referred to often as our second brain, that controlled so much of my body that once I was able to heal that, everything kind of got back into equilibrium for me. But I didn't know this at the time. And I was seeing a GI doctor who was not very successful in helping me. And unfortunately, I lost health insurance. I aged out of my parents' health insurance at 27. 2 weeks after that, I found a large lump in my right breast. So this was a time that maybe my faith could be tested. If I could speak to faith in those terms, I don't know that I would have said that until later in life. But going back to the power of the mind, I ended up having a surgeon who would do an exploratory surgery for me. It was the cheapest option that we could go about. It was really a blessing from God. It was only several $1,000s to have the whole exploratory. We don't know what's going to happen until we get in there. And I remember again from The Secret, a woman's story who had had cancer. And she said, I'm not going to go the traditional route. Laughter is the best medicine. Every time I feel fearful, I will say, I am healthy and safe. And so during this really scary time of my life, I adopted that mantra. I am healthy and safe. I am healthy and safe. I am healthy and safe. And when I woke up from this exploratory surgery, what did the surgeon say to me? Christy, we have never seen this before. We do not know what it is, but you are healthy and safe. And I get chills to this day every time I recount that story. And I will tell you, within 1 year of that moment, I was putting tenants in that house in Florida. I was selling everything I owned, and I had a one-way ticket abroad. And I did 20 countries in 11 months in 1 year, from being, I couldn't even eat in my own kitchen. I thought I had breast cancer. My life is over. And because of the power of the mind, I was able to fulfill my wildest dreams. I said, no, nobody was going to be able to tell me, wait until you're retired, which had been my plan. Health is our greatest wealth, and life is not guaranteed. And so I set sail, and I ended up spending the next 5 years abroad. I ended up, by the time I was 31 years old, I had gotten rid of everything that I had owned. And it was just the most beautiful self-realization journey that I could have ever been on. Now, I say all that, and as amazing as it was, maybe I believed in the power of the mind, but I didn't have faith yet, in the sense that there is a higher being. I just thought, really, I felt a burden of of my thoughts become things and I can control everything. I didn't understand how to surrender. I didn't understand how to let go. I was very, very driven. I still am, but people would say, you just need to relax. You just need to let go. Be like, yes, okay, but how? I didn't understand how to surrender into something that was larger than me. While I was traveling, I did spend some time in the island of Bali, and that's a very spiritual island. So I did feel some sense of spirituality while I was there, but after I left, it was hard to keep that. And in September of this last month, right around the start of the BNSA, Think and Grow Rich $1 Million Mastermind, I had an experience with faith that shook me to my core. And I am not the same woman because of it. I was going through the trials of life. And I'm sure everybody in this show today can resonate with when there's big success waiting for us on the other side. And is there some adversity you got to go through to get to that other side? And I was feeling it. I had lost my job as a corporate advertising director. I thought I was immune to the economy layoffs. I will say it was very humbling for me. I was a star, I was a rising star, and I thought, okay, that's other people's problem, not a high achiever problem. Nope, it is an anybody problem. And it wasn't just that. There were multiple things in my personal life that were testing me to the brink. And I was at a time where I was my most near broken. And a friend had asked me to an event. And as I was driving, I thought, man, I just cannot be around people right now. I need to walk. I need to talk. I need to get this off my chest if I'm going to have any hope of maintaining a conversation. And so we went for a walk. I'm in Atlanta. We have a belt line around our city, and there's not a lot of shelter around it. It's just out in the open. The skies were blue. We went on a walk. And as we were talking, it just really pouring my heart out. I was desperate. I was tired of living how I had been, living without faith. Now, this is crazy. This is a true story. We're talking about God, we're talking about Jesus, and Jesus itself had been something that was always hard for me to accept. I didn't grow up with religion. I only heard everybody else's story that has maybe left the church for reasons. I'm sure we've all heard some religions can leave a bad impression, and it's a shame. And I had always heard those stories. And so I thought, there's just no way that I can believe. I don't get it. I can't believe it. But being desperate, I was open to anything, and she's sharing her story with me. And so I said, you know what? Okay, I don't understand. I don't have to understand how in order to believe. I just need to surrender and say, I believe, please help my unbelief. And in the moment that I said, Jesus, I accept you into my heart, I kid you not, the skies blue at the start of our walk, cracked open, and we're walking. And what I 100% know was my baptismal walk. And I had accepted God into my heart and felt that I was reborn during that downpour. And a few days later, I'm, starting the Think and Grow Rich book. I'm burning through the first chapter of Desire. I flipped the page to the second chapter, and it's faith. And I laughed out loud. The energy around me was electric, and I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. And so I'll open the conversation. I know I've been talking for a minute, and we can talk more about how faith has really supported me in those months since. It's just absolutely incredible. But that moment of faith, being an adult, being somebody who has achieved so much and always felt that there was something missing, there was a wholeness, a surrender, a sense that it is not all on me. I can relax and believe. And it really put the thought, the burning desire, everything came together, being supported by faith.
Okay, I see the heads bobbing on the YouTube, on the podcast, and our co-hosts. Your story is just amazing. I have already started writing many notes, but I'm going to go to Galen first because he is on the edge of his seat. Galen.
Fascinating story. I mean, just so many different directions. And I'll tell you, one of the things I really like about your story is very often people will hear the title of the book and automatically think just of money. And money is a part of it, but riches can be defined in so many different ways. And you've done a great job of highlighting how you can use this principle to manifest almost any definition of riches that you might have. I'm curious about you were introduced to this through the Mastermind program for Black National Speakers Association. And I'm always fascinated when non-Black people are joining the Black National Speakers Association because people like you, Susan Linder, and Amy Waninger, really, really active, really, really involved. What is it about the Black NSA that drew you to that drew you in, although you're not, although you're not Black?
Yes, good question. And I was very happy to find out that it was open to anybody because I'm on the board of directors for NSA Georgia, and Ann McNeil had come to speak to us in either September, I think it was September or August. It was right before the start of the Mastermind, and a previous Mastermind participant, Jessica Lundy, her story had always inspired me. I had heard her tell it through being a part of our chapter several times, and I just thought I saw a bigger version of myself in her story. And so when the pieces of the puzzle came together and she said, "No, I'm here today because of Anne. It was her mastermind that I credit all of the career success, everything you've heard me talk about." And I thought, "Oh, okay, wait, I need to be involved in this." And then, Anne, you were giving your spiel about it, so to speak, from stage, and you said the price, and I thought, that's it? That's it? Okay, sign me up. And my boyfriend and his family, they are all Ethiopian, so I do, believe and support in just all of our voices coming together and not having this division that just has never made sense to me in my life. And I was very happy to hear that I could be included and that I can enjoy this, a beautiful mastermind program.
Fantastic, fantastic. I'm also curious. Then I'm going to turn this back over to Miss Ann. I'm also curious. When did this book become more than just a book for you? Because, many of us will read it because it's a book that you're supposed to read. But at a certain point, this becomes something that you put faith in. When did that happen for you?
When I flipped to chapter 2 and it said faith right there after being bathed in a rain shower of accepting faith, I thought, there's really something here. And as we went through the mastermind program and we would share different takeaways every week, and we had our smaller groups where we really got into discussion, it was really amazing to see, again, how you can read the same thing over and over, but it's not until somebody else's perspective kind of sheds light on how they took something that you can wow, not only is this relevant how almost 100 years later, is that right? 90 something years later, it's amazing that through every decade, every year, the principles, the story, everything about it is so applicable to today. It's timeless.
Fantastic. And back to you, Peter, because I could have this conversation for the next 15, 20 minutes at least.
All right, all right. I'm gonna yield to Peter because I see him also leaning on the edge of his seat. Peter.
I didn't think I was going to get a chance for a minute. Goodness gracious. Christy, thank you so much for sharing a little bit of your journey, your insights, even your road to faith, right? I got a question that's hopefully is going to help our listeners, our audience members. And I want to hear your take on Christy before, Christy after, or even those individuals out there who may be stuck in their lives, who may be impacted by society, the news, social media, things like that, and they just they don't know how to turn the corner. What might be your message to them, whether it's the faith chapter, whether it's, surrounding themselves with like-minded individuals? You talk a lot about the mastermind. I would love to hear what is your recommendation for turning the corner to get to your trajectory or your next level?
Thank you. I love this question. Going back to, whether it's inspiring audiences to achieve their impossible dreams, to helping businesses beat plateaus, stagnation is really what I help people with. And it took a while before I was able to see that that's the problem I could solve. As speakers, they say, "What's your story?" And just from talking to me for a few minutes, you can probably tell that I've had a lot of transformations. I've had a lot of stories, and it's not just this one story of within 1 year of being the sickest that I could ever imagine to traveling the world many times over. I also showed back up after that 5 year experience, broke, homeless, jobless, communityless. I had one carry-on suitcase of tattered summer clothes. I showed up to my parents' doorstep in Atlanta in winter. And within 1 year again, I had a six-figure salary. I was purchasing a house on my own in the most competitive market in history. And it is the courage to believe that is first and foremost. So I think you mentioned the news and social media, and I'm glad that you did so. That impacts, that affects our brain neurochemistry, right? There's a lot of fear out there. It gets into us. We're in the scroll. We have, there's been multiple studies shown on how dopamine affects our brain, and it can put us in this freeze state, right? So I would say that the first step is having the courage to say, even though it looks bleak, even though everybody else, even though comparison this, push that aside and say, there have been worse times throughout history and everybody's been okay. We've made it through. The first is to believe in yourself. And the second is to work on that neurochemistry within your brain. And so I talk a lot about how we can use our bodies to impact our mindset. And for me, no matter what stage of life I'm in, if I'm trying to get to that next level, the very, very first thing I do is always get back into my body. So whether that's HIIT workouts or yoga or going for walks, get into your body, strengthen your core. Again, going back to our second brain is our gut, having that core strength, having a tall, strong spine. I believe so much in the metaphors of when you have a strong spine, when you have a tight core, it's like this iron corset that you're building yourself, and you can hold on and say, yes, I will weather the storm. Yes, I am strong enough. And those are absolutely the first two steps, no matter what you're going after.
Love that. Love that there, Christy. And I'm on your team as it relates to all this. But people would hear that courage to believe, and they don't see they hear it and they're like, oh yeah, I got it, but they don't live it. Right. And I even subscribe to what you described also around that for your health. Also, I don't believe in getting sick. I don't believe I'm going to get sick. I know I'm not going to get sick. And I'm actually going to do what I need to do to keep my body healthy. Eat right, work out right, walk as much as I can get. What is talk a little bit to those naysayers who may be like, yeah, courage to believe, blah, 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 blah. What does that really mean? What does that look like? Is it just the actions, or is it internal? What are your thoughts?
Good question. I think the courage to believe, I think if we were to expand on that, it's the courage to believe in yourself. And the best way to do that is by investing in yourself, even when logic says no, even when your fear says no, even when that voice inside says, don't spend on your business because you're never going to make it and it's not worth it and blah, 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 blah. I think if you're able to say, you know what? I am worth it. I'm going to seek out help, whether that is in business building, masterminds, community, a program, coaching, whatever it is. When you part with that money that you want to hold on to out of that scarcity mindset, that is a big, powerful act. You're pushing past that resistance. You're saying, I believe in myself this much. And that opens the door to opportunities always. So naysayers out there, have the courage to believe in yourself and put action behind that.
And I love it. I'm loving what she's talking about. What I equated to this courage a little bit is, you have to be willing to bet on yourself. You almost have to be willing to risk a little bit, step into that. And that's scary for a lot of people, Anne. And you and I have chatted about that plenty of times before. So I'm gonna pass the baton back to you, my dear.
Listen, not only are you excited, Christy, I think you can see in the chat on YouTube, we have uh, many of your members from Black NSA Million Dollar Mastermind are chiming in. So we do want to definitely welcome, uh, Johnny Lloyd, of course, the wisdom broker himself, uh, Netta Wilson, Wyman, thank you so much for always chiming in. Jason Murray, uh, like I said, Charles Bright, Yanira Pugh, I hope I pronounced that right, Smitty, Shannon Coleman, Colette Coleman, Doretha Dennis, everybody, thank you so very much. If you have any questions, please put them in the chat. Now, I want to come back and talk a little bit about, we talked about the past. Now we're going to talk about the present and the future. So we understand that you have an event you're hosting today or a part of today, and it's something that you do around the Atlanta area. So can you share with us, now that you have strengthened this faith that you have, all right? Now you have this new commitment to serve at a different level in a different area, and would like to have you share that with our audience, because you never know who might be listening from the Atlanta area that can participate today.
Yes, yes. Well, I think it's very interesting. And going through the book, step number 9, principle number 9 is the power of the mastermind. And I remember you, when we got to that chapter, very much saying it doesn't end now, go out and even part of your story, right? Like, you're in this edition of the book and for your own amazing story. And that really, really inspired me when you shared it from stage that day, and particularly around the mastermind. And interestingly enough, during this time that I was going through the $1 Million Mastermind, again, remember, I had lost my job. I didn't know, I'd always known that I wanted to start my business. And I did believe that my time at the agency was a stepping stone. But as much as I believed that, it was a shock when, oh, now? Like, I was just starting to think, see my plans for the future, think I was going to be there very long term. And it was like gone like that. And I had multiple amazing partnerships come into my life. And one of them is Collective Glow. We talked about it briefly when we were getting ready for the show. It is an all-in-one membership platform on a mission to make holistic wellness and financial self-care accessible and affordable. And now this is more or less mine and all of our members' own version of a mastermind. We get together, we talk about business, we talk about financial goals, we talk about mindset, leadership, holistic wellness. And we have an event today on self-love. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with what a cacao ceremony is, but we will have yoga and journaling and really getting in touch with a sense of self-love, going back to that belief in self, right? It all starts with our relationship with ourselves. And I think that as a society, we've been focused on the external for a very long time. And really everything, success, happiness, faith, when you believe in yourself, you love yourself, and you really, what does loving yourself look like? It's not just, I think maybe for women, I've gone through a journey with body image issues. It's not just saying, okay, I love myself in the mirror. It's putting up boundaries and saying, you know what? I respect myself so much, you will respect me too. And so we'll be talking about all of these things today from 10 to 1 in the Metro Atlanta area. I'm really looking forward to it.
Awesome. We do have a couple of questions, and I'm not sure where the time went, but I also want to acknowledge that Laverne Blackwood is joining us in the studio, and all of you can do the same every week. You can just log on to our Zoom registration. So thank you, Laverne, for joining us. And if you have a question, please put it in the chat. But Charles Bright did have a question, and so did Doretha. Charles' question was, he wanted to know who encouraged you along the way.
Oh gosh, I mean, that's a beautiful question. I've had so many amazing mentors at every stage, and this brings up a wonderful question, something I talk about often. It's going back to courage again, the courage to ask for help. And now a lot of people have a block around asking for help. And so if it's hard for you to lean on your resources, I would say shift your mindset a bit and see that you're being resourceful. And sometimes people feel independent, or they feel like they don't want to bother somebody, or they feel less than if they don't know something. I think one of the biggest marks of my success has been my total willingness. Ask questions, lean on your resources. Who do you know that's going to know the answer to your question, and go after it? So from books to mentors, I was my biggest speaking opportunity to date. I was blessed enough to be a keynote speaker on the Mind Valley University main stage in 2019. And so Mind Valley, for those who aren't familiar, is a personal and professional learning platform with 10 million students worldwide. So they have amazing thought leaders like Marissa Peer, Ben Greenfield, Jim Quick. I mean, the list goes on in every aspect. And so I've studied multiple months over the years at a time with these amazing thought leaders, from being in person, their seminars, their books. I mean, while I was traveling, while I did experience food and cultures and everything else, it was very much a learning from the best of the best in many areas so that I could be the best me and then apply everything that I've learned. So very long list, very long list.
All right, well, Doretha's question was, how does the principle of autosuggestion, how does that impact your faith?
How does the principle of autosuggestion impact my faith?
Yes.
That's a good question. That's a good question.
So if there are any repetitions, any, poems or sayings or quotes or prayers, something that you may, pull on in a time of need, or scripture, anything like that.
Yeah, I think, going back in my mind, having this kind of unique relationship with faith, having it come later in life, having it come after the power of the mind. I think going back to my story, right? I am healthy and safe. I get checks in the mail. Those were mantras that I had that were related to the power of thought. But really with autosuggestion, I think, it's something that I do every single morning is I ask, how can I be the best version of me today? What does that look like? And so most days it's different, but I think that asking that question in the morning and just tuning in with how I can be the best version of me today and what does that look like, I think that that really shapes my days. And it's the faith of knowing that whatever I come, it's usually three things: present, secure, confident, creative, vibrant, whatever it is, it varies day to day. But knowing that I put that out there and then having the faith to have that represented makes a really big difference in my days. So maybe I don't have the scripture or the mantras that I did in the past, but it still comes out in that way.
I think that's very important. So thank you so much for sharing that, because again, in just listening to you, it is along the way. It is along the way, if you will. And like you mentioned, you had them along the way. And I think that what happens for many of us is whatever we need in the moment, we receive that, whatever that is, if it's a song, if it's a book, if it's a sermon, if it's a lecture, whatever that is, it all adds up to that, that I would say positive affirmation, if you will. Now we're going to ask you if there's anything that you wish we had asked. Okay, anything you'd like the audience to know before we start wrapping up? Any question that we didn't ask, that is something that you'd like to share?
Well, I guess I could talk about the businesses that came to me
Yes,
since being
absolutely.
a mastermind member. I took everything that I had learned while at the agency, and I was developing my own business. I specialize in brand communication. So I've worked with clients like Chick-fil-A, Claire's, American Heart Association, Home Depot, Saya, the list goes on and on. And while it was amazing to get all of that experience with those big name brands, what really matters to me is the local community, right? So I was traveling overseas for a long time. And really the urge to come back was because as exotic as the destinations I was in, I was seeing everything. It got to a point where it all started to mean nothing without community and family. And I was very tired of the fast friends that you would have amazing experiences with in passing. And I thought, I haven't lived in Atlanta as an adult. I was living in Florida. I just had a really strong sense to go back to my roots. And I came home, and really COVID happened almost immediately after that. And it showed me even more than ever, our communities are so important. So I'm really focused now on taking what I learned with those billion-dollar brands and applying it to my local community. And I met a business partner. Again, during this mastermind, I'm telling you, it was such a transformative time for me. And he had everything that I didn't have. So while I'm the face of the business, I'm the communication, I help stop the scroll, I help stand out from behind the screen. These are all things that I work with. He has the marketing, the analytics, the data, the software, the AI, the technology, the development, the coding, and coming together and being able to offer such a full service solution for people who are in a phase of stagnation, right? That is what I'm so passionate about. Don't let anything stand in your way. There's always a way past it. And so whether I'm helping businesses who are brand new and want to be a side hustle to get out of the corporate world, or they're an established business that, one of our clients is a local coffee shop now with five locations. And there's really just so much opportunity in our local communities. And I'm looking forward to serving.
Okay, now what about the other 2, 3 businesses?
Okay, the other 2 or 3. So that's Ignite Saturation.
Okay.
So for those of you who are interested in more information, you can go to ignitesaturation.com. There is a form, you can get in touch with us. We are, again, going back to that word resourceful, we pride ourselves in being a resourceful creative agency. So we do things differently than many marketing companies. The other one, we've talked a bit about Collective Glow today, the all-in-one platform. If you're not in the Atlanta area, but an all-in-one place to have holistic wellness, leadership, financial self-care, sales coaching, everything like that. We are online. We're a global and nationwide movement. Thank you. We have the visual right here. So you can get involved. You can reach out. There's a form at the bottom of this as well. We do quarterly events, virtual coaching. We have things every single day of the week, and no matter where you are, you can participate. So it's really, again, going back to that word community, we are stronger together. And I definitely believe in the new era of business that we need to band together and lean on each other's skills, because we can't be everything all at once. We just can't. And the buyer landscape, the digital marketplace, it is so oversaturated these days. If we're able to say, you know what, I'm good at this, you're good at that, let's come together and support each other. I mean, it's the mastermind principle, just in a different form. It's so powerful.
Awesome, awesome. Now, I just want to just repeat something for our listeners. And if you have not joined us as a part of our National Speakers Association Black NSA Mastermind, which will start again in March, we're going to put the link in the chat, and you can definitely register, because Christy, you have just become the poster person, not poster child. Okay. You have just become the poster person. I thought that when we had Ms. Biddle on, she did a phenomenal job talking about, help me, Galen and Peter, I think it was like $500,000 between 2 or 3 masterminds that she did. It was more than $500,000 that she made. And so whatever we're seeking is seeking us. And I think you just, demonstrated that again today. And there's a place that we can all go for help. We just have to make a decision to walk by the faith and believe that there's some kind of support and help out there. But right now, we're going to ask Galen first, and then Peter, if they can let everybody know how you can be reached before we land this plane.
Yeah, well, first, I want to talk just a hot second about this annual meeting that we have every year.
Oh, yes.
So I just really want to encourage everyone to get involved, get connected with Ann McNeil in every possible way that you can. And then one of the easiest ways, one of the best ways is make sure that you are involved with the Think and Grow Rich International Mastermind Think and Grow Rich Association annual meeting that we have every year. This is the event that we had at the beginning of this year. There's going to be one at the beginning of next year. And as you start hearing information, definitely make sure that you are involved in that. It is definitely worth your time and the nominal amount of money that Ann charges for that event. And then for me, I really enjoyed this conversation because I love the way, Christy, you highlighted, as I said before, highlighted that riches can be defined in so many different ways. And it's really about what's the most important thing to you. Whatever is the most important thing to you, those are your riches. It doesn't just have to be money, although money is important if you don't die tomorrow. So money is incredibly important if you don't die tomorrow. So I would encourage everyone to check out the book, get keyed into a mastermind group, and see how you can achieve success on purpose. My name is Galen Bingham. I am the leadership strategist. You can find me everywhere on social media, but the most fun way to get a hold of me is by checking out my podcast, Whiskey, Jazz, and Leadership. We stream on every podcast platform in 20 different countries. Double Dog dare you to try us at least once. I guarantee you that you will learn something that will help you become a more effective leader. Peter, to you.
Wow, lots of stuff there, Galen. Great conversation. Christy, there's a question in the chat that I got to throw at you really quick. This should be an easy one, though. But, inquiring minds want to know. Can you please share some routine or success habit that you commit to daily or periodically to keep you on track? That was from Laverne Blackwood. What's some small things that you do? And you mentioned a little bit already, but we'd love for you to rehash them for our audience that you do that someone else may want to pick up as well.
Great question. This is something that I've done for several years, and it's typically unpopular when I share it. People think I'm crazy, and nothing has protected my peace more than turning off my notifications. I do not get banner notifications. I do not get social media notifications. I do not get email notifications that pop up. Text message. We're on our phones often enough. I never miss messages, but I block out times to go after them so that I'm able to get into deep focus mode. And a lot of my work revolves around flow state. It's a high performance state. Athletes will refer to it as being in the zone. Creatives, will say it's my muse. And when, Anne, you were speaking of whether it's songs or sermons, that to me, yes, when I'm in that deep focus, when I'm in flow state, it's like everything that comes to me is for me. And I get there by limiting distractions and setting certain times to check in with those. And I really recommend it. If you're feeling confronted about that right now, maybe I invite you to look into that.
And if they are feeling confronted, they just need to get over it there, Christy, because I'm with you right there. My notifications are off. All my notifications are off except for my messages, my personal messages, that is. But I'm going to take that to the next level and even time out my personal messages in order to give myself some of that flow time that you've identified. It's all a matter of shifting our mindsets first and foremost. And for those of you who don't know, my name is Dr. Peter A. James, and you can find me on shiftyourmindset.com. Absolutely. If you want to take a step back and analyze your own selves and reflect on what things you need to do differently in your life, but you don't know where to start, maybe we need to reach out. You can also find me on LinkedIn at Dr. Peter A. James. That's at DrPeterAJames. Ann McNeil. Wow. You pulled in a phenomenal guest there, Ann McNeil, as you always do.
Listen, Christy, could you share your favorite platform and why? And then could you share your favorite book and why?
Yes. So favorite platform, I'm a big fan of LinkedIn. I do believe it's the only social media where people specifically go to network and do business. So I have kind of a different approach. I don't even have business cards. I don't have the QR code to scan. I'll go to a networking event, make a personal connection with somebody, get their LinkedIn right then and there, and then you're able to continue the networking outside of that event. That has been very successful for me. My two biggest career opportunities to date have come from cold messaging on LinkedIn, just finding a real connection point. The favorite book. I knew this question was coming. I've thought on it for multiple days as an author and avid reader my entire life. I was, you know, well, Think and Grow Rich, of course. But in
I can't
more
assume.
seriousness,
There might be another one, so I couldn't assume that.
I'm a big fan of fiction, and a lot of people in the leadership space throughout my life have maybe, I don't want to say been snobby, but like, oh, I don't read fiction. I just read nonfiction. And I think that's such a mistake. Reading well-written fiction has been an essential part of making me the storyteller, writer, and communicator that I am. And I love historical fiction. Memoirs of Cleopatra was wonderful to read. It was very, very long. That is a bonus for me. I love being lost in a great story that is well written. And it also is humbling. I think it's maybe the best word to really put ourselves in a place that came so long ago, people having the same struggles, the same human experience. It really like just cements the message, life goes on. You only have one life. This ends. Don't get caught up in the petty things. Push yourself, be as big as you can, because it's our one chance.
Awesome, awesome. Share with everybody how they can reach you and if there's a favorite project you're working on.
Yes. Well, I think we've talked a good bit about my projects today. If you guys are interested, again, ignitesaturation.com, thecollectiveglow.com. There are forms on both of those pages. You can find me on LinkedIn, Christy Renee, Instagram as Christy sees it. That may be not quite as easy to find without seeing it written down, but you can find me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Christy Renee, and I'll be there. I'd be happy to continue the conversation.
Oh, listen, you have been such a joy, and I am so excited to hear your journey in reconnecting from Georgia NSA when I spoke, because as soon as you said it in the pre-show, I remembered immediately, because I think we actually took pictures together too. So I have to make sure we share those. But I really want to encourage everybody, please connect with her, because again, when you think about your faith and how do you develop faith, there's so many ways and there's so many journeys, but each of our journey is our own. And so by faith, I just really want to encourage all of you to please subscribe to the YouTube channel. And also remember, if you are interested in being a guest on our podcast, you can reach out to me, of course. I'm on all the social media platforms, but I also would like to encourage all of you. I have a book entitled How to Start and Run a Successful Mastermind Group. Get the book, start your own mastermind group. And I could not think of a better setup, if you will, than the one that Christy gave today on the power of masterminding and how I have been able to help elevate individuals to the next level. And if you're interested in going to your next million, not your first, but your next million, then I might be the person for you. You can connect with me at Ann McNeil. That's ANNMCNEILL.com. I am excited every Saturday to come in with our co-host and bring you exciting guests. And if you think you might be one of those, please connect with us. And again, Christy, what a joy, what a pleasure. Please connect with her, everybody. And we're going to wrap up and remind all of you to continue to think and grow richer. Have a great day.